This is Khatt Chronicles, design stories from the Arab world. My name is Huda Smitshuijzen AbiFarès, and I have with me today Lebanese designer Lara Assouad. Lara is a graphic and type designer with a particular interest in abstraction, the relation between Arabic and Latin systems, and multicultural identities. She has a bachelor's in graphic design from the American University of Beirut and a research MA in Arabic scripts and type design from the Atelier National de Recherche Typographique in Nancy, France. She worked for several years in branding design in Beirut and Dubai and was creative director of design for Apple Middle East from 2016 until 2022. In 2006, Lara collaborated with Dutch type designer Frits Meyers to develop Fresco Arabic for the Khatt Foundation's typographic matchmaking design research project. The resulting typeface was awarded a Certificate of Excellence in Typography from the Type Directors Club in New York in 2008. She has worked on 2 children's books in collaboration with Dar Umbus in Beirut, Tabati and Aswat al-Abjadiyya, which were first exhibited in the Haus der Kunst in Munich and at Pesjal Art Gallery in Beirut in 2010. Tabati, the typeface developed for the 2 books, was awarded a Certificate of Excellence in Type Design from the Type Directors Club in New York in 2011. Lara also received the Opera Prima Award at the Bologna Children's Book Fair in 2012 for the illustrations, type design, and layout of the Tabati book. In April 2014, Lara was commissioned by the Sharjah Calligraphy Biennale to develop an installation entitled Ana Enta, consisting of 5 laser-cut individual Arabic letter forms spelling out these 2 Arabic words. Lara Assouad was one of the shortlisted artists for the Jamil Prize 4 in 2016 for her modular Arabic typography project. This was exhibited at the Pera Museum in Istanbul in 2016. In 2019, she had her first solo exhibition entitled Alphabets at Grey Noise Gallery in Dubai. In 2023, she was commissioned to produce a series of prints and objects for the exhibition Scripts in Calligraphy, A Path to the Soul, which took place in Riyadh and in Medina in Saudi Arabia. Since 2019, she has been developing works that explore the Arabic alphabet's physicality, symbolism, modularity, and rhythm beyond its role as cultural signifier. Please join me in welcoming Lara Assouad to Khatt Chronicles and to discussing her work and her vision on Arabic type design. Okay. Hi, Lara, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Huda?
Good, thank you. How was your start of your day?
Good, actually. I had a nice, fun, creative morning in my pottery.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I would like to start by asking you, when was the moment when you decided to study graphic design? Was there some personal event that, inspired you to go into this field?
I actually have always been a very visual person, and I've always been quite interested in making things. So it was a little bit of both worlds and circumstances. In Lebanon, there was a really great program in AUB at the American University of Beirut of graphic design. I was always fascinated by symbols and hieroglyphs, and I think this kind of translated into my obsession with type and letters eventually. And the other side of me has always wanted to make things and make objects. And so the hieroglyphs contribute to the graphic part, and the design that comes from just this obsession with constantly making things. I guess that's probably the answer.
And do you think that there was also like the beginning of your interest in Arabic type in particular, or was your education or, experiences working that kind of pushed you more into that direction?
I wouldn't say I was interested in Arabic type design. I probably wasn't even really clear on being interested in type design initially, starting the graphic design program at university, and of course meeting really fascinating teachers that, inspired me by their own journey and their own experiences. And one of them was Samir Sayer, who was teaching us Arabic calligraphy, the understanding or the basics of Arabic writing and lettering and styles, and Islamic art history. And I think this is really where it started, this interest in Arabic typography in general, I think.
But also, I think you mentioned Islamic art, and I guess what I remember from his courses that he also had this modular pattern making course. Was
yes,
that,
the arabesque.
Did you make that link between modularity and Arabic type at some point, or?
I think this is really from his teachings, because I guess, of course, it started with that because he kept talking about modularity and rhythm and repetition in motifs in Islamic patterns, and so that's kind of connected directly and indirectly with his teaching of Arabic script and writing and calligraphy. And of course, he also kept repeating the idea of modularity in Arabic writing as a means to create rhythm and to create, some kind of harmony in whatever script you're designing. So I think, that, and it's also quite visible and obvious in his own personal work as a calligrapher.
I think, how was that kind of translated? How was that translated in your work because you worked for many years in branding. So how was this fascination with modularity and the Arabic script translated into your branding project as a graphic designer first, before you became independent?
Well, I think moving to Dubai, starting to work for Landor Associates, I came head to head with the realization that people non-Arabic speaking and even Arabic speaking people in the industry and outside of the industry just assume that if you're a graphic designer and you speak Arabic, then by default you should be able to design Arabic writing, logo types, and lettering. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And I just realized I realized two things. Of course, I was aware of them when I was doing my final year project. The lack of good quality typefaces in Arabic. And also, at the time, even when I was working on my final year project, I became even more painfully aware of it when I started working at Landor, because everything that gets produced for this region has to be bilingual. So most of the time, because there's such a bigger wealth of typefaces in Latin, the research always starts in Latin, and then finding something in Arabic that would match was practically impossible. So I very quickly realized I need to work with a calligrapher to actually be able to design those logo types, because finding a ready-made font was not an option. And so I reconnected with Samir Sayer, and we worked over the 3 years I was at Landor. We worked together very closely. I would design the logo type in English, and I would send him my sketches, and he would send me back calligraphic solutions. But some of those calligraphic solutions were Kufi based, others were more cursive based, and through his coaching and guidance, I would kind of work on these logo types and bring them slowly away from calligraphy and into a lettering, typographic kind of language. And one of the biggest projects that we worked on in the beginning that really made me very aware of the modularity and rhythm and repetition was SABIC group. We had the branding of maybe 18 affiliate companies for SABIC. And they all had the same lettering style that had already been defined and set by Landor initially. And so we devised a whole system based on a very structured, very geometric Kufi kind of base, and designed the Arabic and the English lettering to match each other. And through this, I think it was kind of like an extension of my university years, because I learned so much from this exercise about spacing, about relation between different letters, which letters look the same, which letters borrow the same elements. And hence the idea of modularity became more and more anchored in my way of approaching this. The second also project that was along that line that I worked with Professor Samir Sayer on was Entire Group, which also had a really big number of sub brands and it was also another monolithic branding exercise. So we started from a style of calligraphy that he had designed, and we slowly took it from calligraphy to a very unique typographic expression that worked in harmony with the English without it being completely a mirror image of the English. So,
well, I want to move you from your experience and life experience. We know it's very interesting. I find it also, like, my question now is, now that you work more independently and you've been, because of this experience, I guess you went to study and do more research on the Arabic script and actually get more into type design with other projects. I think my question is, now you're moving away also from just making design that is, or type design that is like for practical purposes, and more an artistic direction. And I find it interesting that you go back to the old Kufi scripts. So where does this fascination come from? And how do you think this is very, in a way, unique and different from the trends of type design today? Arabic type design today.
Yeah, I think my fascination with old Kufi scripts really started probably back when I was in INFT doing my research. I mean, I went there with the plan of designing a sans serif nasr based script. I didn't even consider Kufi because I had not kind of done the research and really kind of didn't dive into it as much at the time. But when I was in ANRT, I discovered a love for Dutch type designers and an obsession, actually. And and one of my favorite obsessions was Gerrit Noordzee. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but I loved his. I fell on his the stroke, the theory of writing. And then an even more interesting book, which was Letter, which was a collection of all his writings, like they were almost like newsletters. And even the title, an inconsistent collection of tentative theories that do not claim any other authority than that of common sense. And it kind of, I think this resonated with me so much because this is really what I continue to embrace as an approach to type design, which is, I mean, it makes sense to me. It does not mean it's a rule, it's a law, everybody else needs to follow it. But this idea of, okay, well, let's experiment and let's explore and let's analyze and let's research and let's put things out there and, And so I started looking at what he was writing, his analysis of classical writing, of course, classical Western writing, and then mannerist writing and classicist writing. I mean, classicist writing is definitely was not part of what was interesting for me, especially when I'm trying to draw parallels with Arabic. But if I were to just take classic and mannerist, cursive styles in Arabic really fall under the category of mannerist writing, where the angle of the brush, of the pen is rotating all the time. And classic writing is so comparable to Kufic styles. And when we say Kufic, it's not one thing. There's so many different varieties. And that's where my obsession and fascination started, because first of all, aesthetically speaking, it's so stripped, so minimal, so elegant, and almost kind of some way relates it to my love of the mystery that symbols and icons carry. You look at them and you're not really sure what you're reading first, and then you understand. And I love the mystery that comes with it, and deciphering those old manuscripts has become a bit of a bit of a bit of
You're
a
evolving
fun
from
thing for me.
runner artist to a paleographer, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's
So,
also an
I mean,
interesting science.
totally. I think also in my search for something that moves away from cursive styles, I also want to move away from something that I don't associate and relate to. They're beautiful. I mean, Nasrin, Sulus, and all those very ornate and decorative styles that, are very much connected and related to the Ottoman period, maybe at least they're in their heydays, is a visual aesthetic that I don't relate to. Old Kufic styles are just so beautiful and stripped bare. It almost feels Japanese to me. So I think I wanted to create a better bridge with Arabic and with my cultural connection with Arabic. And I felt like Kufic styles were a better starting point.
You make me think of, when you worked with Fred Smyers, Dutch type designer, on the typographic matchmaking, the first project, and how you guys try to strike that balance, actually, of making two scripts work together, but then each one works very well on its own. And so maybe, how was that experience? You want to talk a little bit about it? Well,
I mean, for me, it was it was one of my favorite projects to start off, as a type designer. It was, a great honor because, as I said in INFT, I was really, I had this great admiration for Dutch type designers, and Fred Smyers was one of them. So when I had the opportunity to work with him, I was really super, super happy, and really honored. And, but it was a really interesting exercise because, all of a sudden, somebody that I had so much respect and admiration for, I had something to teach him, which was, a bit of a very, very unsettling position to be in, and very honoring position to be in. But I started by doing a really big comparative of a few of scripts and styles in Arabic that I felt could inform our choices for fresco. It started by me asking him, so if you were to say, like, how did you create, what is fresco based on? And he said, it's like drawing as if you were writing with a blunt, broad-nibbed pen. And that immediately made me think of Maghribi scripts, Maghribi which is a bit of a hybrid between Nasr and Kufi. And the shape of the pen, the shape of the front of the pen in Maghribi can kind of relate to this idea of a blunt, broad-nipped pen. And so this was the beginning point, but I just started researching all sorts of scripts that I thought could kind of lend themselves to this. And I made a big comparative document of all the letter forms, which I shared with Fred. And then I made initial sketches of all the letters for fresco and sent that to him. And with both documents, he was able to do a digital version or a digital interpretation of what I had sent him as drawings. And the first one was really the first time I realized that, we definitely need much more than one level of X height for Arabic letters. Even 2 is not enough. And so those first trials really kind of, because I was not the one drawing it, he was drawing it with his Western eyes. It really kind of showed the gap between what we thought was a good idea and on paper what it is, because I could not fix it while I'm making it. So I couldn't cheat my theory. And so it made us really kind of revisit what we were talking about and adjust things, adjust the stroke angles, adjust the heights to really create something that was legible and really respectful of Arabic writing tradition.
I want to ask you something else. I think that you beautifully explained your vision and what drives you, which is really very interesting to listen to. I wonder whether you can talk about like 2 things: the project you most enjoyed doing and the project you are very proud of doing so far. So 2 projects, not a lot.
Not a lot, okay.
To choose between your babies, but you have to.
Well, okay, so most proud of, maybe to start with, I think I would say the project I'm most proud of is really my project of modular Arabic typography. This approach that started with a children's book, and it started with Tabati and a really fun brief, and it just took a life of its own afterwards. And and this is really as a project, I think this has been something I'm super proud of. It's this idea of actually not only can you abstract just one style of Arabic and turn it into abstract geometric shapes, you can do that for everything. And then I realized that I can actually teach Arabic type design through that. And it's a project that keeps opening up and unfolding, and I see so many different ways of using it and applying it up until now that I think this is something I'm very, very proud of. And I'm grateful for the people that have kind of just instigated it consciously and unconsciously. And I am, grateful for that moment in my career that has kind of really opened up so many other opportunities and possibilities. And project that I've most enjoyed doing so far, I guess it's a bit hard to say. I mean, I look back at 25 years of work, and the thing that comes to my mind most, and you've hinted at this a little bit now, is possibly the last project I've worked on now, the latest one that we've just opened in Riyadh in June, Scripts and Calligraphy. I was invited to take part in this edition of this exhibition, and I loved the opportunity to, for one, bridge this gap in my mind between design and art and look at those letters, look at Arabic letters, and give myself the permission to create something that is not serving that's not serving a client's brief, and really celebrate the beauty of Arabic letters, and allowed me to use them or create them in a way that I would like to wear them or carry them on me and experience them and also share them with the world. I just wanted to create, I wanted an excuse to create a modular alphabet based on the Blue Quran script for ages. And that was just, I didn't have to ask permission from anybody. I was allowed to do it. I could do it. And it was great. And the actual object manifestation of those letters was so much fun. I mean, it's just so nice when you actually really can experience what it was in the heydays of creation in the Arab world. And, when letters did not just live on manuscripts, in books, they actually lived on walls and on fabric and were engraved in stone and in everything. And it's kind of almost like a Bauhaus, an Arab Bauhaus. And I reveled in that. It was one of the best experiences ever.
It's very nice to listen to you. And I mean, I know you for a long time, but it's nice to listen to you talk about, your journey and the evolution from one thing to another, from like practical interest into something more, let's say, intellectual approach to designing types. And you have been rewarded along the way for these projects, and especially for your approach to modular typography, which actually has become another line of interest in Arabic type design today. So I think that's also interesting that you've kind of unintentionally set a trend. So that's always good. It's always beautiful to see that. And so I wonder, what was for you the most difficult project to work on? Because there's always the nice ones and there's also some that are difficult, but it seems that you learn every time from your project. So I think I'm curious to know which was the most difficult one, and what you've learned from it. If you want to share it with us, of course.
I that's a bit hard to answer. I guess if I think about it this way, I wouldn't say there was a specific project that was difficult to work on. I think the difficulty, there's always a moment in every project where, I don't know if other designers feel that way. I have this moment of utter fear at the beginning of most projects. And it's a moment of, oh my God, like I have no idea. But that's also a big a bit of how I approach projects and how I approach design in general, which is, okay, we're going to just clear out, blank slate, wipe out my head, wipe out everything I know, everything I've done before, and I'm going to start from scratch. So I kind of put myself in this state of panic because I do not build on what I've done before. Because I feel like every new design project is, if you want to actually be truly a designer and actually create something new, new, of course, new is a relative word, but if you want to create something that is meaningful and that is just true to the problem or to the brief that you've got, you really have to start from scratch. If you build on what you've done before and just change it, it will always feel like something that's been retrofitted. And so that moment of struggle is always kind of, it's always there. Sometimes the project is just so in line with what I really want to do or where my mind is evolving that it's much shorter, that period. And of course, some of the difficult projects are also when you're in an environment where you have a lot of parameters that keep changing, or you have an environment that does not understand what you're doing and does not allow you the room to create the way you want to. And given that I am somebody who intrinsically cannot compromise, to my detriment probably, it ends up really kind of slowing down my process. So I know what I need to do. I know that I'm expected to do something else, but I know what is the right thing, and I kind of end up in an internal fight with myself. And I'd
You
rather
sound
not
like a
name.
you sound like a very courageous and very good designer. Actually, I think the moment of insecurity is the moment where you invent something totally new. So I'm amazed that you can like wipe out what you know and start from scratch every time. But that's a quality, nothing to be ashamed of. Quite the contrary. I'm actually jealous of you.
It's a little bit painful to go through that every time. I guess it must have some wear and tear on me at some point. But it's I guess after all these years, I've just realized I have to embrace who I am and accept it, and make the best out of it.
Totally. What do you imagine and wish for in terms of Arabic typography and type design for the future? What would you, if you were a young designer starting today, what would you think is important to keep in mind when working or when starting a project on type design?
I think for Arabic type design, I think we're really just at the beginning. We're at the beginning of the journey, and I think the past 20 plus years have been really an incredible growth and development. A lot of young designers and not so young designers anymore have really taken an interest in this, and I really felt the need for it. And there's been like big leaps forward, but I think there's still a lot of work. I hope that there will be a lot of brands in the region that will understand the value of having their own in-house designed, custom-made typefaces to represent their identity and their brands, because projects like this kind of fuel and define and set the tone for smaller businesses and for smaller clients, and really define the visual brandscape, if you want, the visual landscape around us in the Arab world in a much better way. So I really hope there will be a lot more brands that will embrace this kind of approach. And I really hope that young designers starting now would really approach. There's only been maybe 2-3 decades of work on type design really that are worth looking at now. That there's enough volume of work that's starting to get produced, and that is by no means a reference. And I include my work in all of it. I think young designers need to approach this almost like a blank slate. Of course, it's good to understand what's been done. It's very important to research manuscripts and look into old styles and collaborate with calligraphers to understand really writing systems, because without understanding how you write different scripts, you cannot interpret them into typography. And so they really need to go back to the core of things, understand where things started, how they started, and then break it down to basic skeletal structures and start all over again. I think it's really important to kind of constantly swing back and forth between our history and what's been made in the recent history and in the very distant past, and what is being made now, and try and find our own visual language, each one of us, a bit like what Khatt did, which is his inconsistent theories. I really hope a lot of us will continue to produce more and more work, because the more work there is, the better, eventually something will emerge from all of that. That could become a little bit of a guidebook or basic rules and principles of Arabic writing. But we really have to explore in all directions and keep a very open mind and be very curious to be able to get to that collectively as people.
Yeah, I think also we should stop comparing. I think it's really what I find interesting is that for Arab type designers are often the model of reference is existing typefaces that have been made in metal or in books that have been printed and so forth. And I think that we are now at the stage where it could be very interesting to explore more the history and like the different scripts that never make it into, the big, colorful, expensive books on calligraphy. There's a whole tradition in Africa, in Western Africa,
Absolutely.
and Northern Africa that is so rich. There's also in the Far East, further like in Southeast Asia, there's also scripts. So there's a lot that we don't know. And it's not because I don't blame the type designers. I think it's time for researchers to make these scripts available. And I'm sure that I know some people are working on that. So hopefully the future will give also designers more samples to work from and things to get inspired from. So not just from their own blank slate. I think that,
No,
I
absolutely.
only hope for the future, really. I think it's a very exciting moment we're in.
It's true. I mean, one thing we touched on that in everything we were talking about, but for me, what I'm really, really very passionate about is the richness. Like, I mean, if you look at Latin typography, you have one structure for the letters. It's fascinating for me that there are so many different versions of any given letter in Arabic. And, some of them are really quite different one from the other. If you look at letter Dal, for example, in quite a few Kufi scripts, it's very different one from the other. In the cursives, there's so many variation, and it's, it would be a pity to just limit ourselves to looking at a few hot metal type interpretations that were made by a few people who were exposed to just one version of Arabic, and it's not a reference.
Yeah, well, let's not blame them. They might have also been it was at the time a very, also in Latin type, it was a very expensive investment. So you take the most usable, like the workhorse, basically, script. And I think we are beyond that. And I see it already, like people looking and finding their own research, finding their own way to recreate some of that richness.
Absolutely.
That is very special to Arabic as you describe it. Okay, I want to take you to something completely different. We want to end this nice conversation on a very personal note. So my question is, what do you do in your leisure time? And what are your other passions than type design and Arabic letters?
I think one of my latest obsessions and passions has been typography, pottery. As I said, started by saying in the beginning, I've always been a maker. I've always loved making things, creating objects. I've worked in leather. I used to create leather bags. I used to love bookbinding also. I've done a lot of bookbinding. I even taught bookbinding workshops. And I think just underlying all of this probably was always, I always wanted to learn pottery and didn't have the chance. And during the first year of COVID, I had the opportunity to go and start taking lessons. And I think it's just I felt like I had been channeling this all my life, but unknowingly. And for quite a while, I always felt like there was a big disconnect between all my different passions and all my different interests. And recently, through trips to London, to the V&A, seeing the ceramics floor in the V&A, visiting an exhibition of a very, very famous potter called Lucy that I really love, seeing her work. Somehow going through all of this really inspired me, brought me back to something that I didn't realize. It just created a bridge between looking at Islamic art and Islamic pottery, and all those beautiful, beautiful plates with inscriptions in Kufi styles, beautiful, very bold, very abstracted Kufi lettering. Really kind of made me want to play with this, play with how can I bring my lettering, my modular letters to my pottery. And yes, I've been experimenting with that lately, and soon more to follow very soon.
Yeah, I know that you are in the beginning, sort of in your beginning of exploring all these things with pottery, but they are available, right? I mean, if somebody wants to buy pottery from you, they can go on your Instagram, they can go to the shop in Abu Dhabi and 421. Is there anywhere else we can send them if they are really like want to have definitely the Lara Assouad pot or cup or whatever it is you make?
I think this is really, 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 really my first venture into commercializing my pottery, and it will soon be available at Dukan from Warehouse 421. And of course, people can always reach me on my Instagram, and hopefully I will have something for them.
Okay.
But it's really it's my first venture into this. So I remain a type designer and a designer before anything else for the time being.
We're going to be kind to our listeners and give them just snippets. And if they want to learn more about you, they just have to Google you or send you an email and meet you in person. Thank you very much. This was a lovely conversation. Have a good rest of your day with lots of inspiration and productive work.
Thank you, Huda. Thanks for this conversation. That was great. It was really good. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.